Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy 2020. This is the first episode of 2020, and it's episode number 68 of the Audible Farm podcast. It's brought to you by Couch Town Coffee. This week's episode is brought to you by Couch Town Coffee. Gotta love them. Roasted right here in Iowa. The coffee roaster there is Andrew Chipman. He's a musician himself, as well as loving local music. He also loves coffee. So, I love coffee. He loves coffee. We both enjoy playing music, and it worked out really well to bring Andrew in a little bit on this. And Couchtown Coffee. You can go to Couchtown Coffee on their website, www.couchtowncoffee.com. You can find a coffee you like in the Our Coffees section and make an order. The coolest part about all this is you can save 20%. You can save 20% on your order this week if you enter the code word 2020. That's right. Code word this week is 2020. First episode of 2020. It's kind of crazy. So if you want to enter the code word 2020, you can save yourself 20% this week on Couchtown Coffee. Make an order. They'll ship it to your house. Wildly cool stuff. It's my favorite coffee. I drink it every morning. I'm actually running a little bit low, and I gotta meet up with Andrew here sometime soon and pick myself some up. So I'm gonna use that code word probably, and we'll grab some coffee. All right. So go to couchtowncoffee.com, find an order, enter that code word 2020. And save yourself 20%. Thanks, Couchtown. This episode is the first episode of 2020, and I thought I'd bring in somebody on the episode that I'm actually pretty, well acquainted with would be a good way to say it. We're pretty good buddies now. I don't know. We don't hang out on the regular or anything, but it's always good to see Clint Riedel. Clint is a musician in the northern Iowa area. He's all over the place. The Wright County Rambler, that's how he's known. He's in the Blue Ribbon Ramblers, as well as being a solo artist. In the last year, he started doing a lot more solo stuff. And we sit down, we talk a little bit about that, how transitioning from playing with a full band to playing solo, and how that all feels, etc., etc. It's kind of a weird thing, because I've done very little bits of playing by myself, or with like a small group. And the smaller the group, the more you stand out. It's kind of odd, but I don't know. Me and Clint, we sit down, we talk about that. We talk about all sorts of things in this episode. It was good to just have a moment to sit down and connect with him. We sat down and talked before he played two shows the evening we recorded, or the evening of the day we recorded this. There's got to be a better way to say that. We recorded this thing, and then within an hour after we were done, he was off to playing a show. So that's really cool. I appreciate Clint taking some time out of his day when he really didn't have to. I really appreciate it, Clint. Thank you very much. And the guy's busy, so go check him out somewhere. Find him online. There will be links down below. We talk about that in the podcast as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's the first episode of 2020. He's back since the first time we ended up doing a podcast was over a year ago. And that was actually when we first met each other. So it's kind of cool to check back in with him, see what he's got going on. It's a fun one. It's episode number 68. Yeah, 68 with Clint Riedel.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Yeah, that was like, I'm getting ready to paint a new guitar because I have that like one that's all blue and whatnot, and I'm trying to find like a way to paint another one that will be as quote unquote interesting looking or whatever. Because now I've like been that guy that walks around with that weird colored guitar, and
yeah, it defines you whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's in my Facebook profile picture, whether or not. That's dumb, but it's a cool guitar. It does it draws a lot of attention, but yeah.
And honestly, fancy. My guitar's sitting over there. Like Brad dropped a PBR Tallboy on it and gave it that big old crack, and I don't know if it enhanced it, but I can't find a better sounding guitar in the world.
Yeah, dude, and that's kind of like if you remember Willie Nelson had that one guitar that had
Oh yeah, Trigger.
played it forever and has holes all over in it and
Yep.
stuff, and he still played it.
I read his autobiography, and like he legitimately ran into his house that was on fire just to get his guitar. He was like, "Oh shit!" So like Willie Nelson, you can just picture this in your mind, like hair flying, fire all around.
He had really long ponytails, but the ends of them lit on
Right up
fire and
until-
slowly burned up until it was the short ponytails that we know and love today.
Oh,
No, I don't know.
God bless him.
I do actually remember hearing a story about B.B. King doing the same thing. Lucille was his guitar, I
Sure.
believe, but it was something to the effect of he was playing in a club, and the club was lit with it was heated with I don't remember what it was, but it was some sort of like old style
I think I know what you mean.
oil burning heater type thing.
Yeah, I think they had like a wood stove in the middle of that.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
And some people got into an argument and ended up knocking it over and lighting the building on fire. And he like went in back and got the guitar and brought it out. That was like whether or not it was like
Yeah,
you don't know if it was like, oh, a fire just started and everybody's running out. He's like, oh, my guitar, and had plenty of time. But whether or not he still
or
went
if it
in,
was all dramatic.
yeah, but he still went in and got this thing. And come to find out, there was two guys fighting over a girl named Lucille. So he named his guitar after the girl.
I never. That's awesome.
So that was the story I heard. So fun stories like that about guitars are always kind of makes the guitar.
Yeah, I named that fancy because it's like the fanciest thing I own, honestly.
There's nothing. I've got a few guitars that are like over my capability price range wise, I guess. I mean, it's not like they're really expensive, but I'm like one of those mediocre, like middle of the line guys. Like that blue guitar is actually like a guitar I bought used for like $100.
Really?
It's not a really fancy guitar.
Shit, man.
And that's like the benefit of like taking it everywhere. It's like if it ends up getting stolen, it's like that's only sentimental value lost. But and like I do have a better Epiphone than that one, but it's still like meh. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, like once you get comfortable with something, it's like a car.
Yeah.
You get in someone else's car, you know how to drive, but it just doesn't feel right.
Bingo, dude. I love the analogy. And that like also comes back to getting a new car. Like everybody would like to have a new car, but you kind of get attached to this old car that you have.
Oh, for real. Yeah,
regardless.
I think I've gone through probably 7 or 8 backup guitars. Like this is the only one that stuck around. I've had a couple temper tantrums and like broke a few, and but feels good at the end of the day.
Oh man, the best part about that would be is if somebody recorded it and then you could use it in like a music video or something of you just smashing up a guitar or whatever.
Unfortunately, it's always just like sitting around drunk, like by yourself in a pit of despair. Like I hate you, guitar.
Yeah, dude, and that's another thing. I did start recording, so I guess I should say Clint Riedel's sitting down with me.
Hey.
You and I actually did a podcast a long time ago, and we didn't know each other literally at all. And that was like a little over a year ago, and since then I've come to jam nights, and you and I have become very familiar acquaintances.
Yeah, when we first met, I had no idea like you were a straight up musician too. Like, I thought you were just on the recording side of things, and I was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. And then you came to jam night, and I was like, holy shit, this guy could play.
Yeah, I can play a little bit. And,
you do great, man.
Yeah, well, thank you, I appreciate it. And that's one of the things when the jam night closed in Fort Dodge that they used to have once a month at Patty's. Like I just started like I always look on the Junkyard's Facebook page to see if they're like, oh, there's jam night tonight. Yep. And it's like, well, I'm going, and I've made it to a handful. I don't always make it out, but I love having something to do. I mean, it's a little bit of a jaunt, but it's awesome.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's just far enough out of Fort Dodge to where like you leave all the craziness behind, but it's also just far enough out of Fort Dodge that it's hard to get back home, after having a good time. So, so it's always hit or miss up there, but it's every Tuesday for like 3 years now.
Yeah, and I talked about it a few times. Like I think the first time I went, the place was just like rampage packed. It was just there were so many people in there. I was like, holy cow, this is a bar in like a tiny town outside of Fort Dodge, and it is packed. And I've been here a couple times where it's like, well, there's 20 people here, that's still a lot of people to sit and watch you
on a random Tuesday. Why not?
Yeah, but it's still one of those things, man. Even coming here and playing makes me nervous. That's something I it's hard to get over, especially if you're playing like jam nights and playing stuff like off the cuff to music you don't necessarily know or whatever.
That is definitely like trial by fire every Tuesday. Like depending on who walks in, like Mr. Zam, Mike Zam, he'll walk in and we're playing some old timey fun stuff. Like he'll get a dancing cow out. It's crazy. It's like a plank of wood and this like cow puppet, and it's percussion, but it's the craziest instrument I've ever seen. Or, and then Jeremy would show up, Jeremy Ober, and all of a sudden he's shredding behind anything you do. So it's just get ready, hold on.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, that stuff's kind of fun when you're just like, I'm just going to play some open chords, and then it's just like, oh, this guy's going to stand behind me and shred some stuff. Like, cool.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, thanks for making my song have life.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, like one of the first times other than the jam night in Fort Dodge, because I like knew that was going to be the situation in Fort Dodge.
When we got put together for that house band, that was crazy. That was the weirdest like group of people up there just to like support the crowd. Like you, me, Brad, and was it Nordine on drums?
Yeah, Nordine was on drums. Which that was tons. That was, oh my gosh. Yeah, that was another one. Like he played like a chord progression that you just started meshing songs into, and all of a sudden it's like we're playing like Baby Got Back or something. And I was like, dude, this is cool as hell. I never thought I'd be up here like playing Baby Got Back for people or whatever. But
I love sliding that in. We played the Dodger Tap last week, and it lives up to its reputation. I mean, I didn't get stabbed or anything, but it was wild. It was a good time, and I think I was playing one, like a sweet, pretty song that I had written about some girl or heartbreak or something, and this guy just straight up gets in my face, and he's like, why don't you play that Eazy-E song again? And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. So I just continued the chord progression for this beautiful song I wrote for a girl and threw Gimme That Nut behind it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And I mean, you're really good at doing that. I mean, as far as just you can take literally almost any chord progression to any song and just turn it into a different song.
I feel like anybody honestly could, like, as long as you know Wagon Wheel's chord progression, any song will fit in there. Any song in the world. Like, I challenge you to find one that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's funny. That was actually like the first one that you had mentioned something to me about, like, hey, you can do that with this. And I think it might have even been the last time I was at a jam night here, when I brought that little blue guitar with me, because usually that's just a 3-finger Betty guitar, but I've been bringing it out other places here and there. But yeah, that was one of those songs I was just like, man, this is. You did like a medley to that, and I was like, this is crazy. And someone's like, oh, that's just Wagon Wheel. And I'm like, Wagon Wheel? Like, I never even put 2 and 2 together somehow. Like, my brain didn't do it. And, that's one of those songs that everybody seems to know, even if you don't like know you know it.
Yeah, once that, like, it cues up, everyone's like, oh, he's going to bust into Wagon Wheel. And then it's fun to throw the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on him.
Ah, that's hilarious. Like, what gave you the idea to start doing that? Was it just dinking around at your place, or like what?
Honestly, like that was one of the first songs I had a buddy from Minnesota show me how to play guitar, or showed me some chords, and he was like, "Well, here's Wagon Wheel, man." It was just new at the time, and I'm like, "This is amazing!" And so like, that's my go-to warm-up song every time, and then something pops in your mind and you start singing and you're like, holy shit, you can sing anything to this.
So it was just kind of it was like the first thing did you start like playing it and then just like singing other songs to it like at first? And then
for sure.
Yeah. That's wild. Like, I don't even know how you would think of that. I mean, I've seen other people do it like on YouTube or whatever, but it's never something my brain never has. It doesn't go into that gear to think about that stuff. So I never even think of, I don't know. There's a certain creativity to that too, because even though like most songs you could smush into that format somehow or another, you still get to choose what song you want to throw in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and, like, reflective. It shows your personality a little bit. There, like, I'm a product of the '90s. So
yeah. I mean, like, we're talking. You could throw like a country song in there, but you could also throw Eazy-E in there. And it's like you could throw anything in there. So it depends on what you want to put in there. We were talking about guitars before I changed the gears here a little bit. Is this like your favorite guitar you've ever had, you think?
Yeah, I picked that up from Chris Carr down at 8th Note, and like I just honestly love it. It's a Cort jumbo body. I can't find anything that sounds better than it, and I've tried and tried and tried. I mean, in everyone's hands too. It's kind of nice. Like on those jam nights when people show up and play my guitar, I'm like, damn, that's mine. You know, like, it feels good.
Yeah, it's cool. I think the jumbo body guitars are, as far as acoustics go, were one of my favorites. When I was growing up, I learned how to play on one of those like ludicrously inexpensive, build it your own acoustic guitars from way back in the day.
Sure.
And it worked perfectly well for what I needed to do when I first started learning before I moved to an electric guitar. But as I was learning and stuff, I was I was blessed with the ability to know people that had a great talent scope, or to have the ability to like show me how to do things. Like, for example, like an uncle of mine played a lot of guitar, and he had at one point in time had like a jumbo bodied, I think it was a Guild guitar.
Nice.
It was nothing to sneeze at the time. I'm not sure he still has it or plays as much as he used to, but he had that guitar, and I remember playing it as a kid, being like, "This sounds really good." And then you grow up and you buy your own, and then you're like, "Oh, this one doesn't sound as good as like what I think I remember. The other one sounded like so long ago."
Yep.
But I attribute a lot of it to the fact that it was a jumbo-bodied acoustic, which I think they've always been my favorite. There's barely a sound difference, but there's enough of a sound difference if you are around the sound enough, I think.
And like we were saying before, like you don't want a hacky looking guitar, because every picture that's going to be taken of you, that's going to be around your neck, and you get known for that guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it's a really nice guitar because it has character on it, which I think the character is almost like reminiscent of like a road-worn musician's character.
Oh,
you know,
for sure. Yeah. I try not to wipe the blood off, because there's been a few shows where I don't use a pick, so my fingers will just explode, because you play 7 hours over the weekend, and so I try not to wipe the blood off, but it's got some great stories.
Yeah, it's wild. I always kind of I mean, there's, as far as like guitar aficionado looks of guitars go, there's many different preferences, but like it's usually either like keep it as new as you can, or some people are just like any scratch nick and anything, it's character, I'm gonna keep it in there and hopefully exemplify it in the guitar.
And my brother, my buddy Jordan Reuter, my lead guitarist, I remember he's got this sweet Strat, like this American Stratocaster, and he was just dragging it on the ground behind him, and I was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, "Just, putting some age on it." And like, okay. Since then, he's gotten a hard case for it, but yeah, it's one of those things like, well, that's not fair. That guitar didn't earn it yet. You're just dragging it on the ground.
Yeah.
Like if you dropped it because you were drunk at a show, yeah, that mark counts.
Yeah, I remember knowing a guy that would like, he'd play shows and then he'd like let people use his guitar as like a coaster and things like that. So it would just like add all this aging to his guitar, like hyper age it, and he'd just be like, "Well, this is all like road worn from like playing shows at a bar and stuff like that." It's like, well, kind of,
yeah, a little.
But it was kind of funny to see that there was just like stains in it from people putting like mixed drinks on there. We're like, "Oh, this Jaeger like left a stain in the finish after it was all torn up, and now it won't go away." So it's like a perfect like cup stain on the guitar. But
I'm not mad at it, but yeah, he didn't earn it.
yeah. And that's another thing. Like as far as aging guitars go, there's like companies are putting out pre-aged or pre-worn looking guitars, or spraying some old paint looking finish on it, and then
it really is just like, hey, why don't I just sand this down like it's been used 400 years and upsell it? But I guess I feel like that doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, like a truly iconic aged guitar, like an actually aged one from somebody playing it, you can usually tell. And a lot of times people that have those guitars, they don't let go of them because they've put so much time into them.
Or people like us can't afford them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, like going back to, we were talking Willie Nelson, having a guitar that's all beat up and just holes all over in the top of it, and it's just like that's all from playing, and he's not going to get rid of that, and it wouldn't make sense for somebody to want to have a guitar that looks like that and has holes in it like that.
Can you imagine what that thing's? Well, I mean, it's going to the Smithsonian, but what that thing's going to be worth when he passes.
Yeah, that's another cool thing is like iconic players, iconic guitars, the market for them and where they usually end up and stuff. A lot of times it's just like some rich dude owns like handfuls of guitars from the 70s rock bands because that was his favorite stuff, or like whatever. But
yeah, it becomes like cars to these cats, honestly. Like, I got a whole garage full of sweet cars, and no one's ever gonna drive them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not like somebody should have them out there and should be playing them, because they are kind of like iconic things. It's kind of like having like a game worn, Babe Ruth jersey or like whatever, but at the same rate, like it is kind of one of those weird things that I think about. I don't know if you've like looked too much into it, but I remember reading stories about like stolen guitars in history. And so like a lot of these guitars that get stolen, like who's going to be able to sell a stolen guitar on a black market,
no
especially
doubt.
if it's just like, this is Jimmy Page's guitar from this blah blah, or whatever, whoever stole whatever guitar.
Yeah, just such a notable guitar. You're never gonna be able to play it out in public. People are gonna be like, "That's so and so stolen guitar."
Yeah. So it's never gonna end up in the right hands. But I've heard through like digging through the internet that there's like a small handful of underground people that will buy stolen instruments, and like there's been people that are like, I want to say it was Joe Bonamassa, but he would like find these guitars that were like, this is a guitar that has been claimed to have been like the stolen guitar that's been lost forever from here, and I'm playing it right now in an undisclosed location.
Oh, shit.
And so like there's apparently like some collectors out there for these like stolen like whatever Eric Clapton guitars or whatever, you know, from way back in the day.
Like just putting a mask on and YouTube or video recording themselves like, "Hey, suck it, world, I'm doing this."
Well, yeah, and I thought it was kind of weird that like, if I recall the article correct, and I don't know, it's the internet, so it could have all just been a giant farce and it could have all been fake. But like the gist was like, some people have access to see these things and play them every now and then, but like not disclose their location and let out where all this stuff has happened, which I think is like pretty weird.
Yeah.
But there was like a big push for these people to disclose if these were honestly the real deal guitars. Like, where are they then? Tell us where they are, because we want to know and we want to put them in a museum or whatever. But
no criminal charges. We just want the guitars back.
Yeah, just weird stuff like that. And that's another thing, is like stolen gear. Stolen gear, it's like, it has always bothered me so much.
I was talking about that with Jordan, sound guy at Shiny Top last night. I was like, "Man, you got so many like mic stands and stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, sometimes I'll have one. Sometimes there's 14. He's like, "It all depends." And it's us dumbass musicians leaving stuff around. Like, I can't even imagine where half of my cables or harmonicas and stuff end up, you know?
Yeah.
But as far as stealing, I don't think I've ever had anything stolen, but definitely left some shit.
Yeah. I mean, I've left some stuff too. Usually it's nonsensical stuff like a pile of picks or like just cables and mic stands or something like that. But that's another reason I try to, like, if I'm going to take something on the road, I always try to take like an economy version of something home, or that I would, you know, otherwise use at home. So like at home, it's just like, I'm going to buy a super short cable that's nice, but I only got one of them, so it's staying at home. But otherwise, I'm going to buy these like $8 to $10 cables and take them out on the road. And if I leave them, it's not that bad. It still kind of sucks though when you're just like, I'm one cable short because I don't have any backups. But
That's a real thing.
That's a wild thing. So you ever left like a guitar or something accidentally, been like, oh crap, and I gotta go back, you know?
Yeah, Iowa Falls. We played like a Friday show in Iowa Falls, and we were supposed to play a Saturday show. I don't know where, but I woke up that morning and I was like, well, it's gonna be awfully hard to do anything without my guitar and harmonicas. So back to Iowa Falls we go.
Oh gosh. Hopefully it wasn't in the opposite direction.
Oh, always is.
That's hilarious. So I mean, when you go out and play these shows, as far as like the last year, because like I said, it's been about a year since I've talked to you. You were like one of the first maybe 15 people I interviewed when I first started doing the podcast. And this last year, you've played a lot more like solo shows, and along with your Blue Ribbon Ramblers gang of guys that are out there. And you're just really filling up the calendar, going a lot of different places, playing shows. Like, what do you attribute to the drive to do that?
Brad and I were talking about this, and he says, you joke that it's like you don't want to have a job, and that's what I always say is like, I'm just trying not to have a job. But he's like, you're taking your job pretty serious, man. Like, you're working right now. I was like, yeah, I guess so. So I guess it's just wanting to eat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is true, though. You put a lot more love into your own special interests than you would into somebody else's. And that's nothing against, like, anybody. But, like, everybody, in some sense, is working, quote-unquote, for the man. And hats off to you for not working for the man.
Thank you.
You know, you still gotta go out there and bust it, though, man. The crazy thing about that is, as well, everybody's out there hanging out on Friday and Saturday nights, having a good time at bars, wherever they're at. You're at work.
Yeah.
Dude, you're at work on Friday and Saturday nights.
That's a thing I've noticed. Like, it's been about 5 years now that I've just been playing music and nothing else. And yeah, there's a lot of good times I've missed out on just because I was in a different bar, you know, like Or Christmas, say just last Friday, we were having my Riedel Christmas, and I was like, sorry, can't make it. Got to go, make the bread.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of those sacrifices. I hear it sometimes come up on some of like the comedy podcasts I listen to, but as far as like those people that are doing comedy, it's the same deal. Like they got Thursday, Friday, Saturday night shows, sometimes a Sunday show, whatever, and then it's just like that's your whole weekend. Like, how do you have time to enjoy anything in your life?
Unless you got some buddies who like drink with you on Mondays and Wednesdays, you don't really hang out. It's kind of solitary, honestly.
Yeah, I could totally see that being the case, but that would also like lend its hand to you sitting around playing more guitar and getting better at the craft or writing a new song.
Yep, exactly, because there's always hard times. Like February is ramen noodle month. Like nobody's hiring music in February, but on Valentine's Day, sure, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're like, it's cold, it's Iowa, we're over it. We're just waiting for the world to wake back up. So. Mm-hmm. I think to myself, I'm just like, well, I'm going to go out and get a part-time job, bartend or something. And then I convince myself not to because that's, I'll be working when I could have been home writing a song or, something wouldn't like I wouldn't be able to book a show because I have responsibilities now.
Yeah. It's like, oh, got to go to work. Can't go out and play this show even though somebody asked, and it's like the slow month. So that's why I went and got a job in the first place. And that's how it starts though, is once you start having those, I mean, as far as like following your dream or whatever, I've heard so many people say like once you have that backup plan, everything kind of starts to go to crap.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just like, well, I don't have to find a gig. I've got, tips coming from flipping burgers or whatever.
Yeah, backup plan seems to be working better than the original plan. Let's just do the backup plan
and then
instead.
Just throw it all away. Like, oh man.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's as far as like musicians around here, like almost every single one of us has a day job.
Yeah, there's no retirement plan. Like if you want any sort of stability or like future. Yeah,
that was like always the rough thing about music that made me think about it. It's like if you don't make it big, which there's a 99.9999% chance you won't, you're probably not going to fare out so well when you're like 80,
Exactly.
And even some of those people that do make it big, they're not responsible with their money, and they have to go out there when they're 80 anyways.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. Like if I had $1,000, I would spend $1,000. If I have $10, I'm going to spend it. Like I'm bad with money, so I might as well be doing what I like to get it.
Oh, dude, that makes total sense. Yeah, and I mean that's another one of those things. Like we were talking about how this last year you're playing shows with Blue Ribbon Ramblers and then some solo shows. Some of the guys in your band are busy with some of their own endeavors or different endeavors other than Blue Ribbon Ramblers. That affords you the opportunity to go out there as a solo act and still be like, somebody said, hey, I want you to come play some music. So you try and get the whole band. If you can't, it's just like, all right, then I can play this solo because they're busy, which means I don't have the obligation of. They're not going to cancel all their shows to play this, so I'll just play this one solo. And I mean that's actually pretty cool. Like I mean that's one of those things that probably just came about by attrition, but at the same rate, how do you feel faring out as a solo artist in shows? Actually,
it's comfortable. It's scary. Like you feel naked, but at the same time, it's kind of nice. Like just you don't have to line up for people's lives, let alone once you get there, like you don't have, because we don't practice. We never practice. We just get together and do it.
Yeah.
And so we're playing tonight actually at the winery, and we haven't played a show for probably a month as a 4-piece. So it's going to be dusty at first and scary, but it's always better to play with them in my mind.
Yeah. I totally feel the same way. Like as far as, you were talking, I'll throw a few examples from my life from this. Like you were talking Valentine's Day, you can get shows sometimes, or little bookings here and there to sing songs for people or whatever. I did one of those a couple years back. It's one of the most nerve-wracking things I ever had to do because it was just me and another guy, and we both had guitars and we're singing, and it's like, there's no sonic space to hide. Like you said, you feel naked.
I feel like every show is rushed. Well, every song is rushed when I'm going solo too, because it's like, well, right now there'd be a badass guitar solo, but since there isn't, I'll just talk to you for a second. It's just every song goes by so much quicker. Yeah, there's none of that space to breathe.
Yeah, and that's another thing I found when I was doing I did one solo gig at the Arts Council building in Humboldt for a wine walk they had there, and I just leaned a lot on like hooking a lot of stuff up and using a looper and like effects. And there were a few songs where I'd throw the loop down and then like play the solo over top of it with an electric instead of the acoustic. And I did a little bit of that here and there, but still like there was no space to hide. All the songs, like, they feel so short because it's like there's no place for a solo here, and unless the chord progression for where the solo goes is special, it's just going to sound like the rest of the song.
Exactly. So. Like, aren't you guys tired of hearing me yet? You know, you just fly through it. It's very, oh man, it's unsettling, but at the same time, I'm kind of a comedian on the mic. I've come to find out when I get up there on my solo shows, just because, like I say, you know, the songs get so much shorter. There's that much more space, so it's a real intimate thing. Like, hopefully it's not a bar. Like, I prefer playing, you know, like wineries and stuff where people show up to listen to music, not show up to have a good time. Mm-hmm. And I don't fault them. Like, you came to the bar to get drunk. You didn't come to listen to music, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
But there's those rare occasions where you're like, oh, this is why I do it, and it, you know, you're up there and it's just you and your guitar and the whole world's listening. It feels like.
Yeah, that's really wild. I think one of the things that put me at ease a little bit was I was playing for, I think I filled up maybe 2 or 3 hours. I can't remember what it was, but I took like a little 10-minute break, and while I was taking a break, I made like a backing loop and just played some like nonsensical solos over it while I was talking to people in the crowd. So it's just mindless playing, just background music.
Sure.
But I was still playing it, but I still had the ability to like converse with people. And this one guy was just, he's like, "How you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm really nervous." And he's like, I don't know if there's anybody else in the building that can do any of this stuff, so I don't know why you're nervous. Like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, okay. Like, I never thought of it like that, and that never occurs to me. And I don't know why I always have this weird feeling of just like incapable of entertaining people with my talent, you know. Like, yeah. I have no clue why.
I hate, like, I compare myself way too often. Like, I know some shredders like Jeremy Ober and stuff. I'm like, fuck, why are you doing this? You're never going to be as good as these guys, you know. Mm-hmm. And then you just have to think, like, well, nobody else is going to write these words down. They came from you, so I guess that's your shtick. Like, you got to be a singer-songwriter because you're never going to be a shredder, and you're never, you know, like. So I guess that's the draw to me, is to just get my stories out.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there. Like, I've played in bands with at shows with people who are just super shredding the guitar playing, or I've played at shows with people who are just playing like, oh, this is a major, you know, diminished ninth chord, and they're playing like all this crazy stuff. I'm just like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff,
yeah,
or at least not as well as they do. But at the same rate, like, they don't know the chords that I know in the order I know to put them in to make this song that I'm playing either, though.
Yep,
so.
I love how everything is so personal and so individual. Like, Brad told me, what you know is your left hand and who you are is your right hand. I don't know a lot, but, you know, I got a pretty good right hand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, dude. I could totally see that coming into play. Plus, like you were saying, like, a lot of your personality comes out at solo shows, and I feel like that's one of the things that lends itself to your shows so much, is the fact that your personality comes out in the show. It's not just a guy sitting there playing acoustic guitar. Because, I mean, like, I always thought if I'm going to end up being the guy playing acoustic guitar, it's going to be like the dude in the coffee shop who's just like in the corner, like not even facing people, just like playing quietly.
Yeah,
like
all
he's
pensive,
mumbling into the microphone. He just plays, you know, like
exactly.
This next song is plays.
Yeah, I love all those memes and stuff where they're like, "Don't be that guy," and it shows like a dude walking into a party with an acoustic guitar. Yeah. And it's like, man, I always wanted to be that guy.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the benefit, though, is like, I always looked at it, and it comes back to, like, my personality of, like, man, I don't know if people are going to like this, so I'm just going to kind of sit in the corner and hide, where, like, you're just kind of like, hey, check this out. And your ability to be personable, like, on and off the mic, while you're playing and while you're not, is one of the things that lends it to, like, he's up there having a bunch of fun, and I'm here having a bunch of fun, listening to him have a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this... I feel like that's one of the things that lends it to your shows, whether even at like jam nights, you know.
Sure, yeah. Honestly, if I won't mention his name, but I talked to this musician when I was first starting out, and I went to go see his show, and I was like, "Man, this is awesome! Aren't you having a blast?" And he's like, "I'm not here to have fun." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "I'm here to get paid. This is my job." I'm like, "All right." And then I thought to myself, well, I don't ever want to be that dude. Like,
yeah.
If this is just work, I hated getting up for work. That's why I stopped doing it and started playing guitar. So
yeah,
So I'm never going to let this become work.
Yeah, and I thought about that too. There's multiple ways to go about attacking music and doing music. Like you said, you can put all the hours, like, and it takes countless amounts of hours to be able to like shred a guitar. How do I know that? Because I put in countless hours and I can barely do it. Like at all.
Yeah,
But I can do it passively in like certain fashions, but I can't do like metal. Like
there's always going to be someone better.
bingo,
There's
yeah,
always.
always, and no matter what you're playing, it seems like, but. It takes a lot of time and hours to put all the work into that, and that's I forgot where I was going with that.
Just you ain't got the time to do it, man.
And I really don't. But if you want to do it, and you are one of those guys that is just like, this is my job, I'm taking this as seriously as I possibly can. More power to you. But I always thought to myself, like, if you're not enjoying this thing you're super good at, it kind of is, it's melancholy.
Yeah, I don't think it would spark any interest. It's just, if you're amazing at it and getting no pleasure out of it, I don't think I would do it even if I was amazing at it.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I feel like that's why people trade jobs and do all this other stuff. Because it's like, no matter what you do, if you do it enough, you're going to become good at it, and people just kind of get tired of being proficient at certain things. They want to challenge themselves with something else. So maybe that's one reason, I don't know, people like switch jobs or to learn new instruments or whatever it happens to be.
There is that plateau, like as you're playing, you've gotten to this point and it just levels off and you're stuck there until, someone else shows you a new chord progression or something and you're like, oh wow, and you utilize that. But yeah, I think it's definitely just a whole series of steps. It's never, and the steps are endless. You can keep getting better if you want to. I'm just pretty content with my 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah. And that's another crazy thing I think about is, imagine it this way, like, if learning different things in different orders puts you at a different level than somebody else, as far as like musicianship goes. So like I grew up playing open chords, played a lot of church music, then I started playing punk music, and then I started playing some like metal music, and now I'm back to just playing like punk and metal. But in my free time I play a lot of blues. So those are like my main influences. Those are the main things I've delved into, and that's like where my knowledge structure is. But do you think if somebody did it in a different order, like I first started playing metal, and then I started playing blues, and then I started playing church music, and they like did it in a different order, would their talent scope be different even if they took the same amount of time to learn?
I think they would just have, those tools in their toolbox. By the time they got to the open chords, they'd be like, well, I can do anything in the world over top of this in between. It'd probably be the most amazing folk musician you ever heard.
Yeah.
I don't know why like metal and folk haven't infused with each other yet. Why isn't there metal folk?
I don't know. I talked to a guy from Des Moines recently, David Tillinghast Jr., about folk music. He really likes folk music, and he's trying to do his best to incorporate it somehow into punk music, because he feels like it's the exact same thing, except it's just like one dude with an acoustic guitar standing up there instead of a whole bunch of people with leather jackets that weigh 80 pounds with their pockets full of change.
Exactly.
Like
you just go from bar chords to open chords, and that's honestly the swap from punk. And I grew up, like, I wasn't playing guitar at the time, but I was, a product of the 90s, so it was Rancid all day, every day.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then you just start doing the research into those bands, and I don't know how the hell I ended up, like, falling in love with John Prine, but I guess my evolution kind of went that way, yeah. Straight to folk.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. And it very well could be that we're... and everything I say is mostly, I'm not trying to like make anybody feel bad, but like where you or I or other musicians might lack in their talent ability, you might have a firmer grasp on your creative ability. Like you said, if you get super, super good at something, it just doesn't drive you to do anything new or different or creative with it. But if you only play open chords, it's like, I can put this different chord in here, put it in this pattern, and here's a whole different set of words that go with it. So you have this internal creativity coming from like your words and stuff like that.
And honestly, like when you start to think you're plagiarizing the world, Jeremy Ober said, you can't write anything new. Everything has already been done. Like there's only so many chord structures that line up together that appeases the ear, It's already been done, man. So just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as there's been a couple like lawsuits recently about that, and it's a bunch of arguments. But like, it's so weird that people are copywriting like minute passages of music and being like, this tiny snippet of your song is reminiscent of this tiny snippet of my song, and I'm going to sue you over it.
I heard a thing on NPR where I think it was Katy Perry or someone got sued for using something from a Christian rock band, and this Christian rock band was like, nope, that's way too close. And then like they played the 2 clips, and I was like, it's questionable. Well, she lost. So yeah. I think they got like a couple $1 million or something out of it, and it's just like, well, I'm never going to be famous, which is fine. But if I was, everyone would sue my ass because it sounds like I'm, writing John Prine songs or Rolling Stone songs.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally get the argument for plagiarism and not wanting people to be able to have the ability to steal your music or steal your creative abilities, your whatever intellectual property,
sure.
But at the same rate, like if you're gonna take this tiny snippet out of something and take this tiny snippet out of something else, it's like this 3 seconds sounds like that 3 seconds out of this 5-minute ordeal.
And if they had like recording equipment back in the 1800s, you'd be able to find a song from the 1800s where it was exactly the same, snippet. It's just everything's been done.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you because it comes back to, like you said, like having just the most basic chord structure, like a 1-4-5. Everyone's done that with every chord, everywhere, all the time.
A rhythm and like a formula to writing a song. You know, so it only works in certain ways. So there's only so much you can do with it. Yeah,
and a lot of it is like reinventing the rhythms that goes about these things. Like you said, you were talking about, what was it? Your left hand's what you know, and your right hand. What was your right hand?
Who you are.
Who you are, which makes a lot of sense because that's where a lot of the rhythm comes out on playing the guitar. So that really puts your flavor into these. It's no different than cooking. It's like, is the first person that ever made chili going to sue everybody that's ever tried to make their own spin on chili?
Yep.
I don't know. Like I said, I get it to an extent because it's if you're totally going to rip stuff off, you might want to pay the person, especially with like. And I'm not picking on rap backing beats, but in the 90s there was a big thing on that with Vanilla Ice,
Oh yeah, and, Stealin' Queen. Yeah.
But then like the coolest part about that was I'd start to listen to some rap songs like, dude, this is Michael McDonald. Like this comes from a Michael McDonald song. I think that's Warren G and Nate Dogg, Regulate.
I've noticed that too. Like you grow up listening to this and you think, they've come up with this great beat, and then you'll be listening to like the oldies and on comes on like the Temptations or something, and you're like, I know that from Tupac. What's going on here?
Yeah. But the funnest part about that I've found is to like re-listen to the song and then try and find like the part where the drum beat was by itself that they clipped out, because they didn't have like a track by track breakdown of this where they were like, all right, mute the vocals, mute the backing vocals, mute the tambourine, we're just going to use the drum and bass on this one, and we're going to use the guitar. They didn't have any of that ability. They're just like, they would spin a record until they'd find this like open spot in it and be like, all right, here's the part we're going to clip, and just loop it nonstop and keep doing it.
That's when they earn their money,
Dude, yeah.
Cut and paste.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if the guy's doing it with actual records and stuff, like that blows my mind, having the ability to do that. And gosh, and that comes back to like anything could really be an instrument if you really wanted it to be.
Honestly, yep.
Oh man, that's wild. You've been playing tons of shows recently. This episode will probably come out in early January. So I don't know if you've got like the ability to check your shows upcoming. Do you have a list anywhere? Or do you know any shows coming up?
I just got a calendar for Christmas, so that's awesome. I'll be able to keep track of that now. But I've got a little pocket calendar somewhere floating around. But our stuff is weird and sporadic right now. Playing 2 shows tonight, and then Okoboji Winter Games. I don't know if you've ever been up there for their Winter Games.
No.
But this town erupts. It's just it's like as busy as their 4th of July up there, except everyone's wearing snowsuits and standing on the lake rather than floating on it.
Cool.
It's crazy, but we're playing like 3 gigs up there.
Cool.
Mid-January, and just a whole bunch of like randomness coming up, honestly.
Yeah, I did notice that as of this last year, you got a Facebook page that you have the ability to access, and you've been posting shows upcoming and whatnot, So.
It's usually pictures of my cat, like, hey, come see me.
Yeah, that draws people's attention. It's like Goody Two-Shoes.
You betcha.
Sitting on your guitar next to it, and you're just like, Goody Two-Shoes wants to come with, but...
Everybody loves cat photos, I figure, so I'm like, I'll just post a picture of my cat and then mention my gig.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have like a Facebook page for your I know Blue Ribbon Ramblers has one. Do you have one for like your solo stuff? Like
Unfortunately, I put it on my personal page. I'm just like, hey, I'll be playing there. I kind of treat Facebook and as just business. Like I'm kind of anti-technology. That's one thing I wish I was better at, like for lining up gigs and stuff. But yeah, so on my Clint Riedel Facebook page, I'll just be like, the day of course, because I'm horrible with it. Like, hey, come on out.
But yeah, I mean, that's the cool part about that is I'm usually within, like a half an hour drive of most of the shows that you play, or so,
Sure.
so I have the ability like, oh, he's playing a show tonight, and it's the benefit of that is he didn't post it 2 weeks ago and it got lost into nothing, so.
Yeah, because I forgot what I did yesterday, so I think the daily like highlights. But
yeah, dude, I totally get the same way.
Well, we're competing with the frickin' sports balls tonight. Hawkeyes are playing a sports game at like 7, and we're starting our show at 7. So I don't know what the show's gonna be like tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I used to follow sports so religiously, and then eventually it was just like, this is too time consuming. I saw that like athletes didn't last as long as they used to, and so I was just like, I don't want to have to relearn people's names every 4 or 5 years.
Don't fall in love with the player because they're going to leave for a bigger contract, next year. And
that like football was one of the last like things I started enjoying watching because it was just like there was a handful of dudes that were really, really good, and it was like they're fun to watch because they're good, but I lost my passion for like rooting for a team and things like that.
I think honestly the only thing that really hurts us musicians besides the winter weather is sports. Like Monday night football, Friday night, just all these random events that are going on where people are staring at the TV rather than the music that's going on behind them.
Yeah.
It's kind of disheartening, but I mean, I understand it. In the middle of Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to do. And that's another thing is like whether or not it's one story, because I spent a lot of my musical time down in Des Moines where you're scrapping for people's attention. It's like an every night deal. It doesn't matter what night, there's something going on. There's tons of restaurants. There's literally a bazillion things to do down in Des Moines. So like you got
to be a pretty big deal to have a draw because there's anything else to do. Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, it's tough when you get like, oh man, like 30% of the people here are walk-in traffic that didn't know what was going on. Like that's wild. When you get situations like that, but like you have that in like every small town everywhere you go around here, so like there might be something to do, but you've got to still compete with people that have I mean, it's weird when you come from a small town and there's nothing ever to do. You get comfortable just sitting at home doing nothing.
Yep.
You find other stuff to occupy your time, and then when someone's like, there's a dude entertaining people down the street, and you're like, meh.
Yeah, I'm on my couch. I think I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm 14 episodes into this wicked Netflix binge. I'm just gonna cruise through it, man.
Yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, if we got into the communities like Nashville and Austin and stuff, though, where like everyone wants to see the entertainment, well, then you're just that small fish in a big pond because everyone's an entertainer.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a rough thing because it's just you'd be so disposable. Like you could play a show, but it's just like, oh, we're having a show here. We have like 14 shows today, actually. When we have breakfast, there's a guy playing from 9 to 11, and then there's a guy playing from 12 to 1.
Yeah, real things. Like we thought we hit it big. Like we play up in Okoboji at this 3-story bar, Captain's. It's just amazing. I don't know how many thousands of dollars worth of sound and stuff, but they give us a band house and everything, and we're like, oh, this is the way fucking artists get treated. This is awesome. And then so we thought we were like a big deal and stuff.
Yep.
And then we talked to the sound guy, and he's like, yeah. And this was at the end of last year, and he was like, I can't tell you how many bands I've met, man. Sorry, because you go up and say hi again. I mean, we're friends, and he knows me, and we talk and stuff, but. Like at first he's like, you are not memorable, you are just another band. And I feel that's the way it would be in those big towns. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. And that's another tough thing. 'Cause you can only remember so many people, and it sucks to say, but like, it feels like in this day and age, you can make a longer lasting impression with a negative,
for real. Yeah.
Something negative than you can with something positive.
I think I did that last night. I yelled at some lady in the bar. Her husband was such a dick. And, so I was like, I probably shouldn't have done that because I just, at the end of it, I'm not an aggressive person. So I was like, hey, ma'am, I'm sorry, and I was like, my name's Clint. And she's like, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, God, I forget about that. Like, I play music all over this town.
Yep.
Someone has seen me. If I don't know them, they still might know me. So.
Bingo.
So, yeah, that negative impact is probably going to last on her a little more than, like, whatever song she heard me sing.
Yeah, dude. And that's such a tough thing, though, because, like, I mean, I've worked a public job, like a public service job for so long where you, like, constantly all day long are interacting with the public and serving them. And it was, the toughest part about that was, like, you might have an interaction that's, like, slightly negative, like,
and that's what you're known for,
and that's
forever.
Bingo, you know? And so, like, every time someone's just like, oh, man, I used to know you because you worked at this place. And it was like, oh, like, I hope the interaction was positive. And I always tell them that because it's like, if it wasn't, like, don't hold me accountable for it because it's been years and years ago. And, but at the same rate, like, that's such a tough thing to overcome is the small fish in a big pond kind of deal. Or even like we said, like being the big fish in the small pond and just like, I'm coming here to play music and everyone's just kind of like, meh.
Yeah. Brad said, like, you are nobody in your hometown. I'm like, what do you mean? Because we played Manson. He's from Manson. And he's like, I'm like, everyone's going to come out, you know, it's your hometown. They're going to come see you. And he's like, no, to these people, they know me. Like, you know, they watched me grow up. It's just, oh, you can play a guitar, you know?
Yep.
And I was like, I don't think that's right. Well, we had a good show and stuff, but then I played my hometown, and I was like, well, this is going to be amazing. You know, I used to sling drinks for these guys in this bar. Now I'm playing guitar for them. I show up, and they're all just same dudes, still staring at the TV. They're just like, oh, you play guitar now. You know, I thought it was going to be like the second coming, but
yeah. Dude, and I tell you what, like, playing shows in your hometown when you play most of your shows not in your hometown is something that I've come to do a little bit of. Like, I've played a couple shows in Humboldt, and it was a little bit like that at first, where it's like, we're bringing in another band that I enjoy, and they're going to play and open up the show, and it's just like, man, there's, like, not very many people here. And then, like, before you know it, we get up on stage, start playing about halfway through the set, like, there's a decent amount of people here, but it's not as big of that, like, hometown hero thing like you think it's going to be.
Totally anticipating, like, oh, everyone's going to, you know, bring their babies. It's going to be a great time. but no, it's just the same people that were in the bar anyway, you know?
Yeah, and that's what it's a lot of that. And, I mean, we played a New Year's Eve show, which was actually pretty packed, which is pretty cool because, you know, you get those built-in audiences at some of those shows where it's like everyone's going to be at the bar anyways.
Yep.
So, but like, it's always tough to play a show in your hometown and just be like, who's going to show up? Because even sometimes you'll play shows like nearby your hometown and you get people to drive and it's like, man, you guys didn't come out to the show when I played in town, but you drove like 20 miles to come see me. That's weird, you know?
We got a super fan and I love him. Cam Nelson works at Shimcat. He's a Baby Shark and all that jazz.
Okay.
You know, he's great. But he takes cabs. Like, he took a cab to the Poorhouse when we played in Humboldt from Fort Dodge. So he's probably spent like $100 on a cab, but he's, you know, doesn't want to drink and drive. So.
Dude, yeah, that's beneficial. It's not like you can Uber and anything like that.
No, I wish.
And it's so tough to find like a designated driver, you know.
Well, and everything's so sensitive. Like, honestly, like, if you look at a beer, you might blow over. So be careful on your way home.
Yeah, and I totally get that though. Like, when I started playing shows in Des Moines, like when I first started playing down there, I still drank, but it got to the point where it's like, I can't drink down here. Like, I just can't. Like, I can't drive.
Not unless you're staying.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing was like sometimes I'd have a couple drinks. It's like in the off chance that I get pulled over, I don't want to blow over.
Yeah,
even if I am
feeling all right, but legally
you know,
not.
So then you just like sit at your buddy's house until like 2:30 or 3 in the morning. You're like, all right, I know I'm good to go now, and then you take off and. It's like, yeah, but now I'm getting home at like 5 in the morning. This is so dumb, you know? So I just quit drinking at shows, which eventually led to not drinking like, you know, almost ever you know, at all. But it's totally whatever, you know, and it just kind of lended itself to me being like, I don't want to have to, I mean, I never was much of a partier anyways, but I did on one occasion I was in Des Moines and I was like, well, let's get an Uber, go across town, go to this bar, hang out with these people and get an Uber and come back. And just Ubering across town twice, it was like, I can't afford that, let alone like going to a bar and spending the amount of money I spent there.
Should have just bought a 12-pack and sat in the dark.
Yeah, we all could have hung out in your garage and had more fun than this. Wouldn't have had people looking at us when we're yelling stuff. And...
See, I went the other direction. I just bought a minivan and put a bed in the back. So no matter what, like I can sleep wherever I am. So it's just a matter of, okay, do you want to have a good time? Because you're going to be cold tonight. You know, you're going to be sleeping in your van.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's kind of like summertime, I'm a little drunker because I can pass out and feel fine and wake up and go about my day. Wintertime, it's like, I'm just going to go home.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. That's pretty brilliant though, to like have the ability to like nap in the vehicle that brought you to the show on the off chance that you drink too much. And then it's just like every town's got a place where it's just like I can just park here overnight and leave at 6 in the morning.
Come to find out, bank parking lots, they don't tow you. You just park in the bank parking lot. Everyone goes about their day. You wake up and someone's cashing their check or whatever you wake up to, and then just head on out of town.
All right, there you go. So all the traveling musicians, there's the advice. Advice column from Clint Riedel. We got about 50 minutes in here, man.
Nice.
We've talked about a little bit of your new doings this year, as far as like playing more solo shows, being a lot busier than you have been previously, which is cool, because it gives you the ability to go see new people and try new things at different places. Do you find that like I'm sure it does, like you were talking a little bit about it earlier, like going to different venues, having a different crowd, trying to play a different type of set list, to appease the people that are there?
Yeah, it's honestly, I stopped making set lists about the first year just because I realized what I wanted to get across was not necessarily what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hit or miss. Like, okay, we're gonna start out with all the pretty songs and all my heartfelt stuff and see what they think. And if they're not having it, if they just came to get rowdy, it's like, okay, we're busting into some Jay-Z's 99 Problems on this acoustic guitar, and I'll make you love me.
Yeah, yep. Well, that makes total sense though too, especially if you have like as many songs in your repertoire as you do. You already know what you can and can't play, so you just throw a couple darts at the board, see how everyone reacts, and kind of lean towards whatever gets the reaction.
Yeah, I just wrote a song. Oh, we got a train coming through. I just wrote a song called "Killers or Pastors" because I was sitting in jail with this dude, attempted murderer, and when I got out, I realized I can talk to anybody because after the end of my 2 days, like he was singing to me like it was a frickin' like a American Idol like contest or something.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there was a local celebrity, I'll leave his name out, but he was in there as well, and he's an aggressive man. But by the end of it, he's reading me his favorite Bible scriptures. So I was like,
oh, that's wild.
I can get along with killers or pastors. So I just wrote a song called Killers or Pastors.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's crazy, because I mean that is one of your best, I think, traits.
Yeah, it's going to get crazy loud. We are like 12 feet from the tracks. This goes on every 3:30 a.m., by the way.
Oh, that's classy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'd be able to handle that, but I think that we'll go until we get noised out, maybe. All right, tell you what, we're gonna pause this. Yep. All right, the train has passed. It wasn't as wild as it could have been, but it was noisy. So.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like 3:30 or 4 every frickin' morning. It's nuts.
God, that'd be the worst. I mean, some nights it might not matter because you're not here, but like that'd be like the worst, and you're just like, all right, I get to sleep in today, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what is that?
That's why I drink so much, honestly, because I live near the train tracks.
Oh man, so you got the Facebook page. Everyone can find you on Facebook anytime they want to. I lost my train of thought as far as what we were talking about prior to the train tracks, which is unfortunate because I felt like we were on a good one there. We were on a good one, but you got the Facebook page. You got
I got an album out there now for purchase, like electronically. It's on Amazon, I think.
Oh, sweet.
All of the things, Brad did it.
Like
so.
Google and probably on Apple as well.
Yep.
Is it just searchable under your name?
Yeah, I think it's on Spotify too, but Brad's like, don't tell anyone it's on Spotify because like you don't get any money for that.
Yeah.
Like I think we've had however many thousands of plays, and I think I've accumulated like $7.
Yeah. It's a rough one as far as monetizing. Is it? It's Riedel.
Yep, and it's Clint Riedel, the Scale House sessions, like because I live in a scale house.
There it is.
And we recorded it right here in the living room.
Oh, there's the album right there. It's sweet. Brad's. I don't know what Brad's doing, but he's got some tricks up his sleeve as far as recording music and stuff like that goes.
He really does.
It's pretty wild. So I'm gonna throw you in a playlist I've got created for kind of music around here. As far as what people have, I don't know. I do like that Spotify has the ability to give people the exposure, but at the same rate, like if you do like the album, go ahead and buy it.
Yeah.
It's totally worth, the money goes more direct to the artist. And that's something that like everyone has always had that argument with Spotify about. I don't know.
I do like that they get our names out there, but if there's other avenues to do that, like YouTube, or something.
Yeah.
So it's like thanking YouTube for getting you out there. But yeah, if you like an artist, please go buy their stuff direct. Because I think I've got like maybe 5 or 6 like album purchases, and I was like, well, that's just odd. And then you look at Spotify, and it's like, however many thousands of plays, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense now. Okay, yeah, everyone just went to Spotify.
Yeah, and I mean, I almost wish that, like, and this is like almost like a ludicrous thing, but I've always thought like, if people could like, I don't know, like cooking the books on YouTube is what people have always done in some fashion, where it's like, I'm going to pay some company to put some views on this or whatever. But like, don't you wish your friends would just like always play the album like on repeat, or something like that? And it's like, oh, I wish you could just do this or whatever. Or like, just put it on in the background while you're listening to something, or even just like put it on and just like turn the volume down a little bit,
like, show it to your friends and family, please.
So I can get that 0.00001 cents for you playing this song,
exactly.
Or whatever it is. That's always like the rough thing is as far as like being a musician and trying to monetize your work. I mean, it's one of as far as the internet goes, the internet always touches on a handful of people that get taken advantage of for their abilities to create art, which is just generally in speaking artists, but like photographers, people that do like any sort of video and editing of audio and things like that.
I see that a lot. Like I'm new to this Facebook and technology in general, but like I noticed there's a lot of people like, please don't use my images, I work hard for this and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think of that. Like you can easily just steal anything out there now, huh?
Yeah, it's
music included.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And once something gets leaked on the internet, it's there forever. Anybody can just find that song anytime they want, and whenever they want. It's a rough thing, but at the same rate, like I don't know. There's like no other way around it. You just let the people that enjoy your thing and contribute the money as they want to. I mean, we were talking a little bit about the band Marvin when the train was going by, but they had a Facebook post where they actually just like asked their fans. They said like, our new album is only going to be on this platform. Is that cool? Because they wanted to try and make sure it was a place where they could monetize it. And there was like a consensus that like, leave it there at least for a while, but
see if everyone can get to it.
Everyone that wants it everyone that really wants to listen to it will get to pay you to listen to it. You get like a very good,
that's a good thing. And then allow Spotify
and then allow it later.
Yeah.
I mean, I had proposed the idea, I'd seen like many good ideas on the thread that they had posted, but and check their Facebook page, I guess, if you want to go hunt for the thread, you can. But it was one of those deals where I had suggested maybe you just stay an album behind. So your newest album is only available for purchase, but when you get your next album, when you get your next album, then just put it on everything.
Shit, that's a good idea, honestly.
So
and we're in the works right now. Brad's we've been saying it for about a year, but we're gonna do a Blue Ribbon Ramblers live from everywhere. We've just been random clips from, the best track from whatever show. So like maybe Bury That Body is in Iowa Falls, and another one's at the winery and stuff. But it's so neat because you can hear the crowd in the background and the energy, and you can just. So I'm really excited for this. We just got to sit down and do it. He's just so busy with everything else. So.
Dude, yeah, I will have to say that that will take a lot of time to go through that. I mentioned in a previous episode that like our drummer records everything with like a portable recorder, so it's not as good as what Brad's got going on, because he's got I don't know what he's doing, but he's got a good handle on what he's doing.
Oh, man, he's one of those dudes. He loves frequencies and distance and stuff. Like he's on that level.
Yeah, he's getting good at stuff, and it's wild. So he's doing a little bit better than what we were doing, but taking the time to sit down and listen to every single show and all the tracks takes forever. Yeah, it does. I mean, you almost need to like delete band practices to get everyone in the same room to just be like, is this any good? And it's just like, nah, garbage it. And then you just fast forward to the next one. And
yeah, we've never really sat down and had like a listening party. We've recorded one song, and that rock and roll star moment. Like it was a Saturday morning, and they were playing Gas Money, the NPR, like regional bands and stuff.
Yep.
And I was cleaning out my cat litter box. And then I heard the song fire up on NPR, and I was like, well, that sounds like me. And then it was my song Lights from Algona. We recorded it here, and It was the first and only time we've ever gotten together and just been like, okay, I'm going to play my part. Now, Caleb, you play your part. Like, went about it studio like.
Yep.
And we all just hated it. We were all like, oh, this does not feel organic. This is forced. It's bunk. It got played on NPR, so hats off to Brad.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, as far as getting some radio play, it's not super difficult if you really wanted to get some radio play around Iowa to do it. You just got to hunt down the people and go do it, and that takes the time to like find the right people in the right circles to
Yeah, I got told that we're played over in like Clinton, Iowa. I don't have any clue how they got any of our music or anything, but that's
cool.
awesome.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And like I'm in a band that gets played on 92 Rock here on the Regional Rock Hour sometimes, and like our biggest issue is our studio demo that they had recorded. That was like prior to me being in the band, but there's like every song has like a piece of profanity in it, and except for like one. And some of them are like FCC okay, but we don't want to just be like, here's a song that swears and deal with it or whatever, because we don't know how their format is for their radio station. Because they'll all follow FCC, but some of them are like, we're not going to allow you to swear even a tiny bit.
Yeah, we don't want to offend any of our listeners.
Not even a little bit. So it's like, we'll just take the one that has no swearing or whatever and go with that. So it's a little tough sometimes getting on the radio when you swear a little bit. But
that's funny too, because Josh Mason, Regional Rock Hour, he the first time I ever heard my voice come across the radio, I was driving with my girlfriend, and like I just turned on the Regional Rock Hour, and he played one of my songs that we sent in, and I was like, holy cow, this is amazing, like that Cloud 9. But then I was like, well, fuck, what's he going to do about the swearing? And then, so if you ever hear Bury That Body on the Deep Cold Ground on 92.1, it's just like, beep, beep. Apparently you can't say sucking everybody's dick on the radio.
Yeah, and I actually do recall that there's like, I think I've heard that with the beeps in the song, and it's like, oh, this is funny. Clint, must have said something awesome.
It was probably at like a winery or something with all the hoity-toities just having a blast.
That's funny. I don't know. I feel like everyone gets, whether or not they want to admit to it, everyone gets that sense of humor, especially if you're just kind of kidding around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, like, I had a great mom. I respect the world, but it's like a well-placed dead baby joke. Sometimes it's got a spot.
Oh, that reminds. I was watching some Norm Macdonald stuff when he was doing comedy. He's always been known to say like awkward stuff in places that might not fit the awkward thing, but still make people laugh. And that just comes back to being personable, man. And that's that like might be one of your strongest suits as a human being, is you're just like, the cat got the cat on me right now. But that's
awesome.
The man, Goody Two Shoes, the cat, makes another appearance on the podcast.
Awesome. Oh, Goody. I wish she would ride with me. Like, I tried to give her like a chance to become a road cat, and so I put her in the van and I drove to the bar, which is like a block away. And I opened the door and I'm like, what'd you think? And she ran home. Like, just get me out of here. I was like, oh. Well, I don't want this to happen at like a truck stop or something, so I guess you're just gonna have to be a house cat.
Yeah, bummer. Mm-hmm. That's a fun thing though, to see people taking animals on the road with them. I always thought that was pretty entertaining.
I need to get a road dog. It's kind of it's boring, all those hours of driving and just but then I feel bad. Like, what are you gonna do while I'm in there playing music and hanging out and stuff? So I have yet to pull the trigger, but when I do, I'm gonna adopt a dachshund. They're the greatest breed.
Nice. Yeah, dude, they're always like some of the most fun dogs, I always felt like, as far as
I wrote a song about my wiener dog. Like, her name was Rosie. She was deaf and like partially blind. So like I had to get her and her brother, because they're like, well, she's going to need him. They're together. I was like, oh man. So I wrote a song about her because she looks like she's tired, so her eyes turn red and stuff. But I was going through a divorce at the time, so it like turned into a song about my wiener dogs and my divorce. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you gotta have those companions to have that inspiration.
Yeah, totally. I the funnest story I have about a wiener dog was one point in time I was at my house. A wiener dog just kind of like walked up. I live like right out in the edge of town in the country. A wiener dog just like walked up to the house, like up the driveway, and was just like, hey, and then it was like, okay. So then I just like start petting this wiener dog. It's really friendly. It just follows me everywhere. It was totally kosher. I was trying to find out who owned it and stuff like that. And come to find out that the thing was most likely abandoned. So I gave it to a new home. But for like 2 or 3 weeks, the dog just like went with me everywhere, just like sat in the car with me, like didn't. It was the nicest dog. And I don't know.
Honestly, my favorite breed. Like, I've had a bunch of dogs, and just a wiener dog loves you. He will never stop loving you.
Yeah, totally. And usually they're not too much like attention needing dogs. They'll just chill if they need to chill, which I always thought was kind of my favorite quality in a dog, was the fact that a dog would just like lay there and just be like, "You over there? All right, I'm over here." And then just be like,
We got this.
Cool. Yep. That comes back to that companionship thing, and it does get like those long hours on the road. Like most shows I play almost 2 hours away from where I live. So it just comes down to one of those things where you just spend that time on the road alone, driving to a thing, and then when it's all done, you sit in your car and you drive alone back home.
Yeah, like I don't know how many times I've been approached and people say like, "Man, you've got such a crazy life. It's gonna be fun. Like it's so much fun." And then when you break it down, like timeline wise, it's like driving, contacting people. Like the fun part is the show, and then it's fleeting. It's over.
Yeah, it's the smallest amount of time of anything. I mean, a lot of that came down to like I realized that when I would go to shows, whether they be like pro wrestling or concerts back in the day. You live in northern Iowa, where like the nearest place to go to a show is either Des Moines anywhere or maybe like Clear Lake, which is
geographical oddity. We're 2 hours from everywhere.
It's so wild though. It's almost the truth, because it was like 3 hours to Minneapolis and like 3 or so hours to Omaha and like 6 or so hours to Chicago. But like I go to these places, go to the shows, sometimes driving home afterwards, and it's like, man, I just spent like.
There's Blaze.
I just spent all this time driving, and I only had I only had roughly. There's a dog in here now. Hey, dog.
Hi, buddy.
But yeah, I spent all this time driving, and then you're just like, man, the concert was such a little tiny portion of what was going on. It's almost kind of sucks. But yeah, so anyways, we gotta probably wrap this thing up. We got dogs and cats and everything's
crazy
going down. Oh yeah. All right. So.
Well, thanks, man. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, hey, dog. Yeah. All right. So yeah, everybody, Clint Riedel. Check him out on Facebook. Give him a friend request. Check out Blue Ribbon Ramblers on Facebook. I'll put links to everything down there. I'm sure if you head to the Audible Farm Facebook page, I'm going to tag you in the thing so everybody can find you. So I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with me and updating everybody on what you got going on.
Anytime. Man. You keep on doing this, man. You're doing a lot for us. I appreciate the hell out of it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you, buying a shirt and representing, putting the pictures online and stuff. I'll share that every day.
I'll be wearing that at the winery tonight.
Dude, you're so cool. You're so cool. All right, dude.
Well, peace.
Yep, we'll see ya. Oh, yeah. Clint's such a fun guy to hang out around. We mentioned it in the podcast. It's he's got a great personality. He's just a fun guy. That's what it comes down to. It comes out on the stage, and I feel like stage presence is definitely something that I have almost zero of. I don't know. It's tough to learn that. It's tough to be comfortable up there unless you just go up there and do it a bunch, and especially if you're doing it alone. There's nobody else to lean on, nobody to banter with on stage. So that's a tough one. Hats off to anybody out there performing solo shows. Not an easy task by any measure. It's rough. There's nowhere to hide sonically. But yeah, it's cool to have Clint come back on here, talk a little bit more about playing guitar, doing some solo shows, telling some stories, talking about guitars and whatnot. And speaking of talking about guitars, I had mentioned some story I'd heard about Joe Bonamassa possibly having played one of, I think it was Clapton's stolen guitar or some such. So I went and looked it up, and I found an article from 2017 talking about it. And Bonamassa had claimed that, let's see, I guess it was originally posted in 2016 and updated in 2017 was the article I found. I maybe I'll post this under the post that I make. Anyways, the whole thing was Bonamassa had claimed that he knew where the guitar was. He reported Bonamassa had claimed that it was in a collection on the East Coast, and that's all I can tell you, and that's all he will say. So, yeah. So he says it still exists. He hasn't seen it in person, but he's got good authority that it still is out there and somebody has it in safekeeping. So there's like a bunch of goofy stuff like that I think about that. I think maybe I misread this, or I saw a video of him playing, Bonamassa playing a guitar similar to it or something. So I got part of the story right, but that's the story there. So there is weird stuff that goes on with these like music history things. Some of them seem to be just myths, and other ones whether or not they're actually true. So I don't know. That's kind of cool story. If you want to check it out, maybe I'll post it in the Audible Farm group, or maybe I'll just post it in the comments section of the Facebook post. I don't know. So either way, it's out there. You can just search for it if you really want to look for it, and I don't post it. So either way, happy 2020, guys. It's going to be a wild year this year, just like last year. I know it's going to be a wild year, but it's going to be a great year. So I'm looking forward to talking to a bunch of different people. I have sent out emails to people that have emailed me in December. So let's do it. Let's do it, everybody. I'll sit down and I'll Skype with people. I'll talk with just about anybody willing to give me the opportunity to at least listen to your goods and see what's going on. I've got ideas for other shows of sorts I could do with the Audible Farm podcast, or the Audible Farm name, or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe look out for some new shows in 2020. I've heavily debated started a Patreon page, but at the same rate, I don't know. It's still just kind of fun to put out free content and just let people enjoy it and support it as they want to. So yeah, I guess if you want to support the podcast, you can do that by buying a t-shirt or buying a sweatshirt. There are links to the Facebook posts with instructions on how to do that at audiblefarm.com, www.audiblefarm.com. There's links to everything, as well as you can listen to the podcast right from the website there. You can scroll down and write me an email if you would like, and I will do my best to get back to you as fast as possible. Whatever you got that you want to shoot me an email about, just let me know. All right. So www.audiblefarm.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Couchtown Coffee, supporting us this week and most weeks that we've done the podcast. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Couchtown, for fueling the madness every single week, just going out and doing the stuff. So I appreciate you very much, Couchtown. Go to www.couchtowncoffee.com. Make an order. Code word this week is 2020. You can save yourself 20%. That's pretty wild. So appreciate it. Thank you. I want to say thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to my guest once again this week, Clint Riedel. Fun guy. Always fun to sit down and catch up with him. Book him now. Otherwise, he's going to be busy in 2020. I'm pretty sure. He, as far as going towards summertime, he likes to fill up every week, and he's pretty good at it. So hit him up if you want to book him. Check his music out online. There's links below to all the goodies. So appreciate it. We will check you guys next week with another guest. Peace.